And Israel recently approved plans for permanent occupation of southern Lebanon. They're clearing 53 towns in southern Lebanon, and they've already started their ground invasion. So, just for more background here, the Israeli military had said its troops are operating in southern Lebanon now for a new ground incursion. And as it continues its strikes in a statement for forward defense, as it calls it, which is basically let's just go ahead and create a buffer zone that we're never going to pull out of. And then we're just going to allow settlers to just be tossed in there, and we're just going to continue to expand. So, Lebanon's army, not Hezbollah, the army says they're evacuating their advanced positions along the border with Israel. Hezbollah says Israel wants an open war, so let it be a war. And this move comes as Israel's defense minister Israel Katz said that Israel's army has been instructed to advance and seize additional controlling areas in Lebanon to prevent firing on Israeli border settlements. We have positioned soldiers on the border area in addition to points to defend our civilians to prevent Hezbollah from attacking. So, I mean, the whole goal here is to push and occupy. I mean, ultimately, they just want all of Lebanon. They'd love to occupy southern Lebanon all the way up to the Litani River. That's their goal. You know who also actually mentioned that? And for those who don't know, actually, let me go ahead and pull up a map of Lebanon just so you guys can see that. Lebanon, Litani River. They want to work their way all the way up. Let's see. Here's actually a perfect map. Let me go ahead and share my screen here so you guys can see that. And what you see right here is a map of Lebanon. You could see the river right over here. And this is basically what they really want to try to get to, at least in the short term. And they want to basically settle all the way up to this land. And Jonathan Greenblatt of the Anti-Defamation League actually previously spoke to the Israeli Knesset. And this is an American citizen, and he says he's an American for the Anti-Defamation League. He actually went to the Israeli Knesset, and he was talking about the Litani River here, and he was saying as important as it is to push Hezbollah north of the Litani River and make sure that area is basically a buffer zone, it's just as important to make sure we secure TikTok. You guys remember that speech? He's spoken routinely about this sort of stuff. But anyways, this is basically the plan. And part of the reason that it's important that they want to make sure they have this entire area buffer zone is because the Golan Heights is right over here. So you see it forms basically a 90-degree angle with where they occupy the Syrian Golan Heights. So that's going to be a nice starting point. And you see Beirut is right here in the center. So this is kind of the plan. And right now, what perfect time to do it than when you have an administration like the Trump administration that doesn't give a damn what Israel does, and they encourage it. You have people like Pete Hegseth, who's basically just, experiencing unrestricted euphoria. That's what the previous article speaking about how they're trying to basically speed run the end times. Pete Hegseth is talking about unrestricted euphoria, trying to bring about greater Israel. So, of course, they want it to happen because they want Armageddon to happen. These psychopaths actually believe, including Netanyahu's Messianic Likud party, they believe by doing all of this, you're basically speed running the end times. So this is their justification for all of this. This is the U.S. administration we have in office right now, where their entire foreign policy is being ran by their own personal religious beliefs. The talk about separation of state and church there. So, to the index of other news, including Lebanon, you guys might know U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham. Well, speaking about southern Lebanon, as Israel is now gearing up for this ground incursion into southern Lebanon, as if the United States isn't already preoccupied with Iran, while Israel also pushed us into that war. Now we have U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham literally begging, I'm going to show the whole clip here, begging Donald Trump to join the war against Hezbollah in Lebanon, as if there's not enough already going on. So take a quick listen to this.
About it. So I'm calling on President Trump today. Join Israel to attack Hezbollah.
This is
Avenge
crazy.
The Marines. America never forgets. Those 220 Marines and 18 sailors' families, we want to go after the infrastructure that killed your loved ones. They're IRGC assets in Beirut as I speak. President Trump, come up with a new operation called Simplify. fly with Israel and go after Hezbollah, who has American
Wow.
blood on its hands, not only take the mothership of Iran down, also take the proxy of Hezbollah, settle the score, even the account.
The guy's absolutely lost his mind. Apparently, this war with Iran is not enough. He wants to push the United States now to take action against Lebanon. He doesn't give a damn about American interests because he doesn't see America and Israel any different. Now, keep in mind, right now, and this is actually a perfect example of this, right now, as Donald Trump was basically trying to push Syria's president, al-Jolani, to make a peace agreement with the Kurds in northern Syria. Lindsey Graham was consistently, and this is the same week he met with the chief of the Mossad, he was consistently actually calling for the exact opposite, saying there's no way that Syria could be one state, and it's best to just go ahead and split Syria up into different states. Lindsey Graham, this is the same Lindsey Graham. Now, why would Lindsey Graham be suggesting that while Trump was trying to push for this peace agreement? Well, it's because of the fact that Lindsey Graham is basically met with the Mossad chief, and he told him, hey, this is what we want to do in Syria. So then Lindsey Graham comes and says, okay, this is exactly what we want to do. He doesn't give a damn about American interests. He does not give an absolute damn. Instead, he just wants to basically do everything that Israel wants to do in the Middle East, and then he comes back, and he just basically starts pushing their propaganda to expand. And ultimately, even though there's already, and I'm going to be talking about this more in a second, even though there's already good intelligence that basically we don't know if we can last doing this for a few more months based on U.S. stockpiles, he doesn't care. He's like, well, why don't we actually overstretch the United States even more, and have U.S. take action in Lebanon as well. He also gave some this wasn't the only ridiculous statement that he gave yesterday. He also, of course, wants to try to push the Arab Gulf states into this war, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the UAE. He's trying to push them all into this war. So the best way to do it is by telling those Gulf states that Iran wants to destroy them all and that they should also take action. He's just trying to get as many people to go to war and destroy Iran. So take a listen here as well. And he's basically trying to scare the Saudis, telling them, well, Iran wants to turn Saudi Arabia into a Shia Islam country.
With Shia Islam. That's
so
what they say, not what I say. Enact their agenda. They want to purify Islam. They want to destroy Saudi Arabian Sunni Islam and then replace it with Shia Islam. That's what they say, not what I say. Enact their agenda.
And this is another.
They support Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis. One thing to President Trump, in case you're watching. In 1983, Ronald Reagan sent Marines and sailors to try to police and deal with the Lebanese civil war. They were at the end of the runway. Hezbollah attacked the Marine barracks, killed 220 Marines, 18 sailors, and wounded 100 others. Ronald Reagan, who I admire and love, withdrew and never did anything about it. So I'm calling on President Trump today. Join Israel to attack Hezbollah.
The guy totally lost his mind. Now, I'm glad he actually mentioned this event that took place back in the early 1980s because former Israeli Mossad agent Viktor Ostrovsky, who's now fled to Canada, he's still alive. I think he's much older now. He's fled to Canada. He actually wrote a book by way of deception. And the book made headlines all across the United States. He wrote the first book by way of deception, and then he wrote the second book, The Other Side of Deception. And he actually mentioned this exact event that Lindsey Graham is mentioning when these 200 plus Marines died in Lebanon. But Viktor Ostrovsky said something that nobody heard of. And he said that Israelis actually had intelligence. The Israeli Mossad had intelligence that Hezbollah was going to commit this attack, but the Israelis saw it as a great opportunity to strengthen U.S. animosity towards the region and to take stronger action against Hezbollah. So Israeli intelligence decided not to inform the Americans that was going on. And this is coming from Viktor Ostrovsky. I'm going to actually make a whole separate video on that. I've made a lot of videos previously on Viktor Ostrovsky and on by way of deception. But it's interesting to note, there's a lot of actually times where actually Israel does have intelligence that's happening in the Middle East that would benefit the Americans to know, but Israel even takes a look at the situation and is like, wait a second, if something bad happens to the Americans, we can actually capitalize on it. So let's go ahead and let that bad event happen. Let's actually let those Americans die, and we can actually use that to our advantage. So Israel will do that. Sometimes Israel will actually make the events happen and commit false flags. Any attempt to hurt Americans that benefits Israel, the Israelis will jump on the opportunity. They don't care. They don't care. They don't care at all. They don't care at all. Anything they can get out of it, of course, they're going to go ahead and capitalize on that. At the exact same time, there was actually a U.S. fighter jet that went down by, they said it was the friendly fire in Kuwait. And when the U.S. fighter jet went down, Israeli media was also reporting on the matter, but it was happening in real time. And they were showing the video footage of it. And they said, gosh, we really hope that's not the IDF. Let's please pray that's not the IDF. And on Israeli national TV, they're like, oh, it was just the Americans. Thank God. Thank God that Americans died and it wasn't our precious IDF. Thank God. And they're talking about this live on air about about their ally that apparently they love so much, but they have no problem when Americans die for them. So that's basically what's going on there. Lindsey Graham, his his elections to boot him out of Congress, to boot him out of the Senate, is on June 9th. So far, I mean, all of the polls say, I'm looking at Clashy or Kalshi or whatever they call it, the predictor pollster. It says he has like a 77% chance of winning. I really hope that number goes down. I mean, there's still time. It's not a massive amount of time. I just don't think the other guy actually has enough name recognition. But hopefully, I pray that we could just get this guy out of Congress and it could just be a blimp in history and we never have to worry about him again. But to the index of other news, I already previously reported that there is a big chance that we're going to actually see Kurdish forces in Iraq or Syria try to go ahead and do a ground invasion into northwest Iran. And 5 Kurdish factions already united about last week, and they did make a statement saying so far they're going to be a neutral actor and they're not going to take any action. They're not going to take any action because they don't want things to get out of hand and actually end up, facing basically facing the consequences of everything. Well, recently, just in the past couple days, after I've been showing you guys all of this about the Kurds, now we're getting, finally the mainstream media is reporting on all of it. And the mainstream media is stating that the CIA is actually arming these Kurdish groups in Iran amid the U.S. air campaign. So they want to make sure there's total U.S. air superiority over northwest Iran, enough to make the Kurds feel confident. And the United States, President Trump has been actually talking to leaders of these Kurdish factions, really trying to push them to go ahead with this ground invasion. Now, whether or not they're going to do it, we're just going to have to wait and see. But the United States has been doing having a lot of conversations with them, and there's been a lot of back and forth. So it says reports here, reports from CNN, ITV indicate that CIA is coordinating with Kurdish opposition groups like KDPI to supply smuggled weapons and spark uprisings against Iran's regime. Pinning down security forces. Iran has deployed IRGC troops to Kurdistan's province, prompting panic evacuations. Critics warn of regional risks, historic U.S. betrayal of the Kurds. So that's basically what's going on there. We're going to see how things unfold. Iranian Kurdish militias have consulted the U.S. about attacking Iran. I'm going online and I'm seeing, some state that it's not going to happen. The Kurds have went through this before. Keep in mind that the United States actually backed Saddam Hussein during the Iran-Iraq war, and that ultimately led to Saddam Hussein also really clamping down on the Kurdish community in Iraq. And, in that case, the United States went against their interests, and now the United States is working with them, not because it actually cares about Kurdish self-determination, because ultimately the United States just wants to advance its own and Zionist interests in the region, so it's just capitalizing on the opportunity to do that. And again, we see the same sort of thing here. Iran troops have been deployed and prepared for ground invasion in the Kurdistan province here. That it looks like they are setting up positions in preparation for a possible ground conflict with the Kurds. So, I mean, Iranian intelligence has also obviously gotten hold of the fact that this is kind of something the United States is planning, and they're also preparing their troops there. And this is just the map of where the Kurds really are in the region. They span across Turkey, Syria, Iraq, and Iran. So we'll just kind of have to wait and see what ultimately happens there. Now, the reason that Israel's really capitalized on it And first off, there's a lot of Kurdish people that are actually super supportive of Palestine as well. So I don't want to make it seem like I have any sort of animosity towards the Kurds. But what Israel does really, really well is Israel capitalizes on minorities across the Middle East, gets them to hate each other, and so that way it can create new allies in the region. Basically, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So the Israelis have done a really good job at this. They've formed relations with the Druze community that's in the Golan Heights. They're also in southern Syria, and they're forming this relationship with the Druze community because ultimately they want the Druze themselves to want to join Israel. They're trying to get as many Jewish Druze villages in southern Syria to say, wait, we want to become part of Israel. Let us join Israel. So that way they can kind of expand and take more territory and say, well, see, the Druze actually want to be part of Israel, allow them to. And ultimately, they want to make a corridor all the way up from the Golan Heights through the Syrian desert up to the other side of the Euphrates River where the Kurds are. And the United States right now in Israel, the reason the Kurds are even considering doing any sort of ground invasion, if they will, we'll see what happens, is because the United States and Israel are basically making them a promise that if you go ahead and do this, we're gonna we'll help you guys achieve statehood. That's basically the plan. That if you guys are able to capture the land in northwest Iran, in the Kurdish inhabited zones there, then we're going to allow you guys to have your own state, and we're going to give you another autonomous zone, and we're going to help you guys form an autonomous zone between Syria, Iraq, and Iran. That's the promise the United States is making to them. Now, whether or not that actually happens, we're just going to have to wait and see, because the United States has a history of making a lot of promises to these groups and then things falling through. We'll just have to wait, and ultimately, again, there's so many Kurds in northwest Iran. If it doesn't end up working out, well, then those Kurds could be ultimately harmed in the process of all of this. So this is kind of what's happening right now. This is how President Trump's deciding to go about it. To the index of other news, now that so much of the world is starting to turn on Israel, and U.S. politicians are recognizing that supporting Israel is actually a liability, especially right now among Democrats. They're starting to really recognize this. And then there's definitely the America First movement on the right as well. Now, Governor Gavin Newsom, who'll be running for president in the upcoming presidential elections, he's finally linking Israel to an apartheid state. He doesn't flat out say Israel is an apartheid state, but he makes a comparison there, and he talks about it. And people are saying, this is crazy. How is he doing this? Well, ultimately, he's doing this because he's trying to catch up to the times. And he recognizes that this sort of language is normalized now, so it could actually benefit him, since he knows most Americans don't support Israel now. So let me go ahead and show you guys this clip. It's just a short clip here.
For 2 years, they couldn't even, I mean, we're talking about regime change. For 2 years, they haven't even been able to solve the Hamas question in Israel. So this is, I mean, you know, I want to be careful here, but, you know, in so many ways, that influence in the context of the conversation of where Trump ultimately landed on this is pretty damn self-evident.
Okay, so this is, and Zionists want regime change. They couldn't even beat Hamas. That's one clip of it. Let's see, where's the apartheid part here? Here we go.
Looked at the Netanyahu regime and felt like, you know what, we don't.
And notice how they say the Netanyahu regime. They're so scared to say Israel's government, the Israeli, the Likud party. They're really trying to make it as specific as possible.
It's time to rethink the U.S. relationship with Israel, especially military support.
Well,
where do you stand?
Making that easy right now. Let's talk about that. But the issue of Bibi's interesting, because he's got his own domestic issues. He's trying to stay out of jail. He's got an election coming up. He's potentially on the ropes. He's got folks, the hard line, that want to annex the West Bank. I mean, Freeman and others are talking about it appropriately, sort of an apartheid state. They couldn't even, I mean, we're talking about regime change. For 2 years, they haven't even been able to solve the Hamas question.
So, and then you heard the rest of that there. So, Freeman and others appropriately call it an apartheid state. So I guess we have people saying it's an apartheid state appropriately, that sort of language. So, I mean, you would have never, ever, ever 5 years ago heard somebody using this sort of language. At the same time, he's not one to be trusted at all, because we know that he's just saying it. I mean, just 3 days ago, the Gallup polls came out. It was on the 27th. Today's the 4th, so a bit more than 3 days ago. And it showed now in the Democratic Party more than what? I think it's like a crazy number now. 80-some% of Democrats support a Palestinian state. the vast majority of Democrats sympathize more than Palestinians with Israelis. The vast majority of Democrats want less U.S. aid to Israel. So he recognizes that he's not going to get voted in unless he just makes these sort of statements that you would have never heard somebody running for president ever make 3, 4, 5 years ago, ever. But now he recognizes, oh, well, actually, it's good if I do this. It's actually going to win me points in the upcoming presidency, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it. It's not because he actually gives a damn about Palestinian aspirations to any degree. He just gives a damn about making sure that voters like him. And if he says stuff like this, then people will be like, see, he does actually care. He does actually care. He is going to make a difference. No, it all comes down to they just want voter approval. And whether that's actually going to translate to change in policy, I doubt it. But it's nice. It's nice to see that now it's becoming a political liability to not criticize Israel. There have actually, especially recently, I mean, the midterm, there have already been elections yesterday. There was one between, in the Democratic primary in Texas, between Jasmine Crockett and James Talarico, I think, for the Senate seat there. And she ended up losing. People are also questioning, was part of it also due to her support of Israel? So people are really starting to talk about this, and in many different states across the United States, they're starting to recognize, oh, well, Israel's a political liability. I'm hoping this catches up more on the right. There's already leaders. There's already America First candidates now, basically in every single midterm race for, really an America First. I don't want to continue supporting Israel and its genocide against the Palestinians type of candidates, but a lot of them don't have the same backing that they get from that you get when you're being pro-Israeli. They don't get the same backing from AIPAC and all of the likes of those groups. So you're going against one person who's running a candidate with maybe $5 million from AIPAC and pro-Israel groups, and then you're going against somebody else that's more of a grassroots person that might have fundraised maybe $300,000. So honestly, I'm pretty impressed that a lot of these grassroots people are even starting to make their name known because they have so much less money. But people are becoming so hateful towards Israel, the idea of supporting more of Israel, that these people are winning despite not having the same exact resources that these pro-Israel candidates have. So it's been pretty nice to see. It's been pretty nice to see that. And while Gavin Newsom here, actually, one more clip. I want to play the rest of this clip here just so that way you can talk about. We can transition to the war in Iran one more time. So let me go ahead and play that.
Israel. So this is, I want to be careful here, but in so many ways, that influence in the context of the conversation of where Trump ultimately landed on this is pretty damn self-evident. And so Rubio may have been saying something else in the context of what he ultimately said in terms of being sort of pulled into some of these things. But I will say this, didn't surprise me in this context. I don't know if it was Napoleon or whoever said about a sword, the only thing you can't use a sword for is sitting on it. And when you bring 2 aircraft carriers out there and you assemble the kind of military force that Trump did over the last few weeks, it didn't surprise me ultimately they moved that direction.
Yeah, so he's not saying it's really nothing too controversial, but I guess for somebody who wants to run for office, for presidential office, saying this is different than what we've heard all this time. Now, he talked about the United States putting military assets in the region. And something I wanted to share here is there's a massive concern, actually, that there is simply not going to be enough that U.S. stockpiles are going to be depleted, not specifically offensive weaponry, but defensive weaponry for Israel. Because if you guys have been seeing some of the footage that's been coming out, when Iran shoots these missiles, sometimes there has actually been one video where 10 interceptors had to fly up in the air to take down one of them. On average, it might take about 2 to 3 interceptors. Some of these Iranian missiles and drones might be around $300,000, and each interceptor is around I was reading $10 to $50 million, something ridiculous. Definitely closer to the $50 million range. So they're really expensive, and they're also not something you could be churning out very quickly. It takes a long time to create these interceptors. And what we're seeing the Iranians and now Hezbollah, and I think a large part of the reason that Hezbollah decided to join and start also sending missiles over, or actually rockets over, is not because they actually expected any of them to get into Israel or to land, but because Hezbollah also wanted to kind of basically help deplete Israel's defensive weaponry, so that way they run out of their so that way the US and Israel run out of stockpiles sooner. That was likely what's going on there. And now we're starting to hear that there's actual very serious concerns in the Pentagon, in the current White House administration, that they might be running out of defensive weaponry to protect the U.S. bases and also, of course, to protect the Israel project in the Middle East. So let's go ahead and take a quick listen to this here. And I'm just going to go ahead and
Tel Aviv, and I was speaking to sources in Tel Aviv who were showing me videos outside of their freaking window of what they were seeing. But you won't see this on Fox News at all.
I'm just going to speed it up here a little bit as well.
Of course, buildings being blown up, direct hits right next to City Hall. But why is Fox News, do you think, not really covering any of this damage in Tel Aviv, Colonel?
Well, look, I just saw a few minutes ago a interview with Keith Kellogg on Fox News, and they were asking him about I think it was a Wall Street Journal report that said that we're going to have to do something pretty quick because we're going to run out of interceptor missiles. We don't have enough to sustain this over this 4 to 5 week period that President Trump talked about. And he says, no, that's not the case. No problem at all. We obviously wouldn't have ordered something like this. Our commander wouldn't have ordered something like this unless he knew we had enough missiles in the stockpile. And in any case, we can get some from our allies if we need to. And I was just thinking, look, UAE, according to Bloomberg, has said that they've got about a week left of interceptor missiles, and they're going to run out. And they're not even the primary target.
Right.
We're seeing, you just showed a video.
So, I mean, I was speeding it up so just we could get through it quickly. I mean, this is kind of it. This was very well known, though. It was very well known that if there was a war with Iran, the way that the edge that Iran has is actually just a war of attrition, just lasting longer because the United States is overstretched and Israel pulled us in, regardless of what Trump said yesterday, to basically cover for the fact that Marco Rubio just simply admitted, yeah, Israel really pulled us in. And Israel was going to take action regardless. And Trump recognized, okay, if Israel's going to take action and we can't get them to stop for God knows what reason, then we're going to have to join in. Not taking into consideration, maybe actually we should wait a little bit longer. We're not prepared. We should probably not go to war at all. But let's see our stockpiles during the 12-day war. They were really depleted. Also, we need to have to make sure that we have enough resources in the South China Sea. So are we going to be able to do this long enough? And President Trump, I'm pretty sure immediately going into this, they were hoping that the decapitation strikes were going to be enough to get the protests going inside Tehran to actually end up overthrowing the government. And to their surprise, it didn't work the way they planned. And now they're trying to see if maybe they can rile up the Kurds to do a ground invasion, and that would be enough. And that would ultimately lead to protests. I think they're starting to recognize, though, that actually national unity in Iran is increasing right now as they're conducting these airstrikes. And they're sweating because they're like, okay, well, if this goes on for months, then there's going to be an issue. So there's a massive desire in the Pentagon to make sure things go as quickly as possible. And we're just going to have to see if that happens. On top of that, there was actually reports as well, and this is actually also being reported in Asian media headlines. I'm seeing in South Korea Times and all of these other Asian headlines, and they're reporting that the United States, they haven't done it yet, but they're considering moving defensive weaponry at U.S. bases in South Korea, and they're considering moving them over to the Middle East if necessary. That move hasn't been done yet, but they're considering, okay, if we feel like our defensive weaponry in the Middle East is going to start running close to short, maybe we could just start repositioning some assets from area near China. Well, that wouldn't be good because ultimately that's the United States. What the U.S. declares as its biggest enemy right now is China. So why are you starting to reposition these assets? You're starting to run dry. President Trump then goes on Truth Social today and he says this. Let me go ahead and share my screen so you guys can see this. Here we are. The United States munition stockpiles. This is what President Trump said here. Let me actually adjust my screen so you guys can see this better. The United States munition stockpiles have at medium and upper medium grade never been higher or better. As was stated to me today, we have virtually unlimited supply of these weapons. War can be fought, quote, forever, and very successfully using just these supplies, which are better than other countries' finest arms. At the highest end, we have good supply, but not where we want them to be. Much additional high-grade weaponry is stored for us in outlying countries. Sleepy Joe Biden spent all of his time and our country's money giving everything to Zelensky of Ukraine, hundreds of billions of dollars worth. And while he gave so much of super high-end away for free, he didn't bother to replace it. Fortunately, I rebuilt the military in my first term and continue to do so. The United States is talked and ready to win big. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. So, I mean, Greg Stoker, actually, if you guys know him, he posted the takeaway from this rant is that our stockpiles are nearing depletion, and your president is an infantile madman. He's literally lying to your faces, and a lot of your chuds are still doing tricks on it. So that's his statements there regarding the whole thing. I mean, ultimately, listen, this is the thing. This is why there's an interest in making things last as quickly, making things as short as possible. And we're just gonna have to see what happens. Iran also knows they have an interest in, of course, just not having their government be overthrown. But also, Iran recognizes that they win better in the long term. Whether or not that happens, we'll have to wait and see. Breaking points today. They had an analyst come on, and he was stating, he thinks that things are going to last longer, and this is the kind of the predicament we're going to be in. Ultimately, we don't know. Things can change overnight. So, to the index of that, what we're not seeing a lot, especially in mainstream media, is the fact that Tel Aviv is being bombed, and they're getting hit pretty hard. And of course, you're seeing all of the hard hits that are coming out from Iran, but the mainstream media has a very, very, very strong desire not to show any of that. Not, of course, just the mainstream media, but the state of Israel in general. When journalists right now are reporting on it, there's footage coming out of IDF soldiers stopping journalists, including for CNN and other groups that were recording. And CNN admitted on live air today that they're basically being censored by Israel. So let me go ahead and play this short clip here so you guys
that may have come up.
Can see this.
One go up there. We're not showing you that because we're not going to show. The Israeli government does not allow us or want us to show where that may have come up, that interceptor. But I'm not one go up there.
So we're not showing you that because the Israeli government doesn't allow us to show where that came from. CNN admits directly to Israeli censorship live on air. Let's see, who did I see also commenting on this earlier too? I believe it was James Lee, but I couldn't find it now. So I mean, this is basically, there's a gag order right now. Israel doesn't have the First Amendment in the same way, and there's actually a law in Israel that basically stops from reporters and journalists talking about certain things during the middle of a conflict or showcasing certain things. So Iran launched missiles at military buildings in central areas in Greater Tel Aviv, prompting Israeli interceptions and resulting in extensive damage, including rubble in neighborhoods and leveled structures. Israel's foreign ministry has accused Iran of using cluster warhead missiles targeting civilians, and Israel's finance ministry reported 9 billion shekels lost in damages, which is about $2.9 billion. So on top of this is not the only clip where this has happened. There's actually another clip from CNN Turkey, and the footage is that CNN Turkey presented as missiles in retaliation, and you actually see the IDF coming in and just immediately stopping them. So let me see here. Okay, this is not the exact one. This one is just showing Syria's, the footage that's incorrect. So let me see. There we go. This is the one I was looking for.
Bir de enteresan olan şu, telefonumu benden önce de muhtemelen açmışlar.
He's showing something on his phone. Looks like a map.
O ismi vermeye çalıştığımda telefonun ekranında arama kısmına ismi yazmadan o isim çıktı. Benim açma iznimi sonrasından bana açar mısın dedi ama ben açtıktan sonra orada ismi gördüm.
Now in the middle of this interview, this guy is talking here, and you see right here in the center, in the middle of this interview,
telefonum bir şekilde açılmış
the
ve
reporter just had his phone
isimleri
confiscated and the camera covered. And this is right in the middle of this interview. So let me go ahead and search up IDF to see if I can show the thing from the other point of view as well, because it was being reported. I saw it earlier from the other guy's point of view. But this is continuously, well, here, I don't even need to. Here's another footage of a journalist kind of having their things confiscated and being pushed by the IDF. So Israel has a strong interest in making sure journalists don't actually see what's going on. This is what's happening right now as we speak, because ultimately Israel wants to demonstrate itself as being a super strong country. Nothing's going to injure Israel. It's totally okay. But on the ground, that's just simply not the case. Actually, what's so interesting is when it comes to all media, right now, the most reliable media that is actually reporting about what's going on is Haaretz, the Israeli news Haaretz. They're a lot more ballsy than they're reporting. It's a super within Israel would be considered ultra left wing, and they're actually using words that you'd never even hear you never even hear the U.S. mainstream media ever use. Occupied Israeli, occupied West Bank, Palestine, state of Palestine, Palestinians consistently. I'm actually really surprised at how open the Haaretz is about a lot of the things going on in Israel. And they're, of course, reporting on this. They're reporting on the fact the journalists are really required to not speak up about any of this. Israeli officials have previously even called Haaretz a threat to national security. And some Israeli right-wing officials in the Likud have actually pushed for the Israeli newspaper Haaretz to be taken down because they're going out and exposing a lot. I previously made a video actually on 9/11 and how Larry Silverstein was very close to Netanyahu and other Israeli officials. Well, one of the main individuals, the media that reported on that story, Up in Smoke was the name of the headline. It came from a Haaretz article. So many articles actually exposing Israel are coming from Haaretz articles. And of course, the Israelis are Netanyahu's Likud party really trying to go after them and shut them down. So we'll see how things unfold moving forward. That's it for this video, guys. If you found it interesting, I'd really appreciate it if you go ahead and click the like button below and give it a thumbs up as well. It's the subscribe button below. Also, if you want to support my channel, the best way you can do that is by joining as a member. There's 3 different membership options. If you click the join button below with the star icon, you can see that. When you join as a member, you get updates and you get to see exclusive videos that only members get to see. Really supports my channel so I can do this as a full-time job for you guys. Hope you enjoy this video, and I will see you guys next time. Take care.